Hi, and welcome back to the channel. And if it's a welcome back, I know I've been gone a really long time. So a huge welcome back if you're a subscriber and haven't gotten any kind of a notification of a new video in around 2 years. That would sound about right, and I appreciate you finding your way back to the channel. Life got busy and work got really busy, and I just wasn't able to squeeze in the time to make videos. But over those 2 years that I've been gone, I have found a lot of really interesting stories, and I've been saving those up and was hoping to start making videos again. So with all that said, let's get started on the next story. I'd appreciate it if you'd like, comment, and subscribe. I'm hoping to be more consistent this year in making videos, and I hope to reach 5,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Now, on to today's Scareful story. This one's not a murder or a missing person mystery. It's actually about a missing car. And this isn't just any car, it's one of only about 16 ever made. It's an Art Deco masterpiece, a 1938 French Talbot-Lago Teardrop. And this isn't just a rare car, it's an exceptionally rare car, and it's a beautiful one. Some call it the most beautiful car ever made. It has a flowing aerodynamic shape that looks like a water droplet, hence the name teardrop. It has a long hood, swooping fenders, curves that somehow manage to be both aggressive and elegant at the same time. It's the kind of car that automotive historians describe not as transportation, but as art. And when you look at it, it really is impressive. The chassis for this specific car, and you'll have to forgive me, I know like nothing about cars except that I can drive one, and I am an exceptionally good parallel parker. Like I could fit a Chevy Suburban into a space that everybody standing there would tell me it would never fit into. I have my dad to thank for that. But when it comes to things like engines and torque or driving a stick shift, horsepower, I don't know anything about any of that. But I do know a beautiful car when I see one, and this definitely is a beauty. This specific car, chassis number 90108, eventually made its way to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and was purchased by Roy Lusky, who was a very successful businessman who owned a plastic company. He purchased the car in 1967. And now this wasn't a fully restored car that he bought. He bought it and was planning on assembling it and then restoring it. So he was storing his car in his former factory, and it was partially disassembled, and he had been working for decades on restoring it. And some people in his life, or some people in the rare car world, certainly knew where the car was being stored. On a cold March night in 2001, thieves broke into the factory where the car was, and they used a crane that was already in the building to move the car. They managed to get the pieces out of the warehouse one by one into a waiting truck or boxcar, and they spent hours working on this. It wasn't something where it was like a smash and grab where they could just run into the factory and grab the car or even drive away with it because it was being reassembled, but they took it out piece by piece. Working in the dead of night, not only the car disappeared, but all the paperwork and receipts, all relating to things that had been purchased for the car all the way back to the 1960s, vanished as well. But nothing else in the warehouse was touched at all, telling investigators that the car was really the only target. This was obviously a very targeted theft, and it was managed with surgical precision, with somebody taking a lot of time to plan this, assembling a crew of people to help steal the car, and then actually making it happen. These people knew what they were looking for, and the question then becomes is what happens to the car after this? Poor Mr. Lusky was 91 years old when the car was stolen, and he spent the rest of his life hunting for the car and following up on leads on what might have happened to it. And when he dies 4 years later in 2005, he died never knowing what happened to his rare gem of a car. His entire estate, including the stolen car, was passed on to his cousin named Richard Miller, who suddenly had inherited a uniquely complex problem, a multi-million-dollar car that legally belonged to him, but that physically he did not have possession of. Miller's lawyer told him that essentially until the car popped up somewhere, there was nothing that they could do. It was just part of the estate, but he didn't have actual physical access to it, obviously, and thus the millions of dollars that the car would be worth, he also doesn't have access to. So this is where Joe Ford comes in, and it gets interesting because Joe Ford is an expert in tracking down stolen cars. He is a private detective working out of Boca Raton, Florida, but he specializes in finding stolen, high-end classic cars. Ford describes himself as being in a niche of a niche of a niche. He doesn't look for cars that are just randomly stolen from parking lots. He looks for Ferraris that disappeared decades ago, or Maseratis that are crossing international borders, vehicles that the police departments don't have the time or the resources to pursue. His method is fairly unusual. He partners with the victims of the theft and takes an ownership stake in the car. He works for free until the car is recovered, and then he and his partner, meaning the original owner of the car, sell the car and split the proceeds. It's a risky business for him because if he never finds or recovers the car, he gets no payment for any of his work. And to that end, he has filed bankruptcy more than once, but turns out he really loves the chase of finding the cars. In 2006, Miller contacts Ford about the Talbot-Lago. Ford agreed to take the case in exchange for an 80% ownership stake in the car if it was ever found. Now, that's a huge gamble because it could take years and years of work for potentially nothing, but 80%, gosh, I thought 30% in credit cards was bad. 80% seems like a huge amount, but he is the one doing all the work to find the car, and if it's worth millions of dollars, even the owner getting 20% and recovering that would still be a lot of money. Ford had personal reasons for taking the risk. His daughter was very sick with a rare genetic disease, and so he was trying to secure the future for his family. Recovering the Talbot-Lago could mean not only saving and helping his daughter's eyesight, but setting up his family to take care of what would happen as the years pass. Ford worked his contacts. He followed up on leads that went nowhere, and he kept the file open and continued to work on it. And then, in 2016, so now we're 15 years after the original theft, there was a break in the case. The teardrop had resurfaced in Illinois of all places. So you'd think, did it really not make it that far? Did it just make it from Milwaukee to Illinois? And for those of you who don't know, Milwaukee is only about 2 hours north of Chicago. So the teardrop shows up in the possession of Rick Workman, who is a multimillionaire. He founded Heartland Dental Group. Workman purchased the car in 2015 for $7.6 million. He thought he was making a legitimate purchase from a seller with proper documentation, and I'm pretty sure he probably didn't have any idea that it was stolen, because if he had known, he wouldn't have done what he did next, which was he went and tried to register the car in Illinois, which, when he goes to register it, it immediately trips the National Crime Information Center database, and the car was flagged as being stolen. The case landed on the desk of Milwaukee detective Jeff Theo, a 22-year veteran who suddenly found himself with one of the coolest cases he's probably ever worked. Theo told the reporter later that he'd worked on domestic violence, homicide, and all different kinds of cases, but this was the kind of thing movies are made of, and this movie was about to have some major plot twists. The person who sold the car to Workman was Christopher Garner, an American living in Switzerland who imported luxury automobiles. And here's the twist. Garner had been Ford's mentor back in 1984 when Ford was looking to get into the classic car business. Garner showed him the ropes. They worked together. Ford built his career partly on what Garner taught him. Now, decades later, Ford was investigating Garner for allegedly orchestrating the theft and the sale of the Talbot-Lago. According to an FBI indictment and testimony from accomplices, here's what allegedly happened. After the 2001 theft, Garner allegedly stored the disassembled car in California for about 4 years. Then, in October of 2005, just months after Leisky died, Garner did something remarkably bold. He forged documents indicating that he'd legally recovered the car and was in lawful possession of it. Then he contacted the Milwaukee Police Department directly and convinced them to remove it from their stolen vehicle database. Think about the audacity of this guy. He steals the car, allegedly, allegedly forges paperwork showing that he owns it, and then he calls the police and says, well, hey, guess what, you guys? This car isn't even stolen anymore. And I guess it actually worked because Milwaukee took it off their stolen car registry. But obviously, it remained on the registry elsewhere because when Workman goes to register the car, that's when it gets flagged. Illinois knew it was stolen, but somehow Milwaukee decided that this guy actually owned the car due to forged paperwork. But one wonders just how all that happened. Takes a lot of guts to make that phone call. He could have been found out right then and there that he had stolen the car if somebody had maybe just looked into it a bit more. In 2006, Garner smuggles the car, allegedly still in pieces, from California to Switzerland, and from there, he had it shipped to France for restoration. This wasn't something that was going to happen super quickly, and according to court documents, the restoration took 8 years, from 2007 to 2015. That's a lot of restoration work, and this was happening in workshops with other people working on the car. So people worked on it and knew about it, and yet nobody flagged it or nobody cared that it was probably a stolen vehicle. When restoration was finally complete in 2015, Garner put it up for sale and found the buyer, Rick Workman. During this time, when the restoration was happening, Joe Ford was closing in on an investigation into a different stolen Ferrari. Ford learned from a French mechanic that Garner had been involved with the Talbot-Lago. The mechanic worked at a restoration shop in the Swiss Alps and admitted that Garner had shipped the teardrop to him. He even removed the original engine in lieu of money that Garner owed him. And that engine, the real one, would later turn up and become its own subplot in this huge mess. Because now we have the stolen Talbot-Lago being sold to Workman with possibly a non-original engine in it, and the original engine is apparently worth millions of dollars just all on its own. In May of 2019, a federal grand jury indicted Garner on 4 counts of wire fraud and 1 count of transporting a stolen vehicle in foreign commerce. The maximum penalty he was facing was 30 years in prison. Garner was living in Switzerland at the time, and for 2 years, he stayed out of reach of the American government. But in June of 2021, Garner made a huge mistake. He checked into a luxury hotel in Italy. Hotels in Italy are apparently required to report guest names to the police, which seems a bit weird to me, like why does the government get to know everybody who's staying at a hotel? But different countries work differently. So when Garner's name gets reported, an alert goes off and the Italian police knock on the door of his suite and arrest him. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Italian authorities place Garner on house arrest while they work on extraditing him to the United States. And in November of 2021, he escapes. He just walks away. I don't know if he climbed out a bathroom window or if he just walked out his front door. I'm not exactly sure of the details, but it sounds like they weren't guarding him very well. He made it back to Switzerland, where he had been living previously, and the authorities there arrest him again in December of 2021. This time there was no house arrest. They held him in custody until he was extradited to the United States. That happens in June of 2022, and he ends up at Dodge Correctional Institution in Wisconsin, where he was held without bail. His attorney argued for his release, citing that Garner had multiple health problems. He claimed to have cancer and lung issues. The attorney even said that Garner had only left Italy, not because he was trying to escape justice, but because he wasn't getting proper medical care. The prosecutors pointed out that when Swiss authorities arrested Garner in December, he'd been hiking in the Alps. I'm sure he was just hiking to make himself stay as healthy as possible. But I guess one good thing for him was that as long as he was in custody in Wisconsin, the taxpayers would pay for his medical bills. The federal judge ultimately ordered him to be kept in custody, mainly because he had already escaped custody once. During the investigation, a Florida mechanic named Chris Burke testified that Garner had recruited him to help steal the car. Burke said Garner had left Florida in 1997, which is the same year that an Aston Martin DB5 from the James Bond movie Goldfinger disappeared from a private hangar at the Boca Raton airport. Now, is that just a coincidence? I don't know. I'll let you guys figure that one out. Ford now believes that Garner may have been involved in that theft too. Garner, of course, denies everything. He insists that he bought the teardrop lawfully and that he has every right to sell it. He calls the allegations against him baseless attempts to damage his reputation, and he definitely denies stealing the James Bond car as well as the teardrop. When asked about possibly stealing the Bond car, he told a reporter, "I am James Bond, ass clowns." That's the kind of quote that makes you wonder if he's just mocking his accusers or if he's just really mad that he's been wrongfully accused. I'm thinking it's a little more of the former rather than the latter. So where does this leave us? Well, we have this complicated situation. Workman has paid $7.6 million for a car that he thought was legitimate. Miller and Ford are the rightful owners, or at least they have a claim to the ownership of the car. Garner allegedly stole and sold the car, but denies having stolen it. The car itself is sitting in storage somewhere locked away, seemingly belonging to no one, or at least not being used by anyone. We end up with a civil case that goes to court, which is thrown out because one of the judges said that the statute of limitations had run, and you're talking about a 15-year span of time from when it was stolen to being recovered. And the judge said that was too long of a time for them to bring a case. But the Wisconsin Supreme Court in 2020 rules that Workman's possession of the stolen teardrop restarted the 6-year statute of limitations, which gave Ford and Miller a fresh legal ground to lay claim to it. The civil case is still ongoing today, while the criminal case has wrapped up. After indicting Garner, the United States continued to build their case against him, but then something else happened that changed the story. Richard Miller, who had inherited the car, died in May of 2024. He was 77 years old and had a stroke, and only days later, the FBI announced that they were dropping their case against Garner for lack of testimony. And one of the big things here, obviously, is that Miller was going to be a key witness in the criminal case. The government didn't think they could meet their burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Ford had to be completely disappointed about this. He told a reporter later that it was a chicken shit, spineless move. So what we're left with is Miller, who inherited the car, is now deceased. The original owner is long deceased, and the FBI has dropped the criminal case against Garner. So Garner is let out of custody and is just currently walking around free, while the car remains in legal limbo, locked away in storage. Joe Ford, who has spent years working on this case and who gambled on recovering the car to secure his family's future, is left with unresolved issues. In the meantime, nobody's driving the car, nobody's showing it at car shows, and nobody gets to enjoy it. It's really kind of sad for such a wonderful work of art now to just be locked away from the world. This whole saga has become a subject of a book called The $1 Million Car Detective: Inside the Worldwide Hunt for a Stolen $7 Million Car. It's written by Staten Bonner and published in August of 2025. The book follows Ford's investigation in the entire twisted story of how this car was stolen, smuggled, and sold, but yet somehow never fully recovered. Ford told Bonner something that really sticks with me. He said, "Stealing high-end cars is like stealing the Mona Lisa. You can't sell it, you can't fence it, so the collector just keeps it in his basement to look at. Then, when he dies, the heirs try to sell it and they figure out, oh shit, Dad had a stolen car." Now in this case, it worked a little bit different. The poor guy who bought the car had no idea it was stolen, and then went to register it and found out it was stolen, and that is part of the reason we have the drama we have now. But that's not how most cases with big high-end thefts work. The theft creates the problem that can last decades, passing from one generation to the next until someone finally tries to legitimize it and everything falls apart. In this case, it didn't stay hidden very long. Garner sold the car openly with forged paperwork, and it almost worked. If Workman hadn't tried to register it, the car might still be sitting in his garage and no one would even know. But really, what's the point of owning something that you can't share with others? That's what I've never understood. So if you stole the Mona Lisa, sure, you could have it hanging in your basement. But if you can never show it to anybody or share your love of it and your passion for it, then really what's the point? The last reporting that we have on this case is that Christopher Garner is no longer facing federal charges. The case was dropped after Miller's death and the car is still in storage, although the exact location of it is being kept a secret, probably because maybe they don't want a certain someone to steal it again. Ford is still working, and he's now investigating whether Garner was involved in stealing the Aston Martin from Goldfinger, which is the most famous stolen car in the world. Remember that it disappeared from Florida in 1997 and has never been found. So you gotta wonder, is that sitting in some James Bond aficionado's basement? But how sad. God, if you had a car like that, wouldn't you want to be driving it? And somewhere in storage is the 1938 Talbot-Lago Teardrop, valued currently somewhere between $7 and $13 million. It was stolen in 2001, recovered in 2015, and still, nearly 25 years after the theft, no one knows who it truly belongs to. Joe Ford once said that what he wanted to do if they ever got the car back was to take it to Pebble Beach, maybe win a prize or two, and then sell it and take a road trip down Route 66 with Richard Miller, just two classic car enthusiasts, and one last drive before selling it to the next owner. But with Miller now deceased, that road trip will never happen. So we end up with a King Solomon dilemma for the civil court on who's the rightful owner of the car. And we've got a car nobody's driving, or maybe there's some Ferris Bueller thing happening that we don't know about, and the people who own the storage garage are taking it out secretly and driving it. And we've got the accused thief who's walking free, Joe Ford, who worked for years and never recovered any part of that 80% of his ownership in the car, and the collector, of course, Mr. Workman, who paid millions of dollars for something he thought was legitimate. The legal system is supposed to sort these things out, but sometimes that can be a very, very slow-going process, and sometimes there's just no real good answer. So in the meantime, this piece of automotive history, this work of art on wheels, just sits in storage collecting dust while lawyers argue about who gets to claim it. So there you have it, the Scareful story of the stolen Talbot-Lago. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Who do you think owns the car at this point? Until next time, stay safe and stay careful, and don't buy a stolen car. Thanks, guys.